tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is Anthony Cistaro and playwright Hildy Brooks. Actor-director Anthony Cistaro has guest starred on several TV shows, and he had a recurring role on Cheers, and he was a regular in TNT's Witchblade. He's been on the stage in London, Boston, Los Angeles, and New York, and it seems you love the stage more than film, Anthony.
Oh, absolutely. That's certainly where I got my start. It's certainly where I always return to draw a little water from the well, a little creativity, and go back and continue with all of my varied interests. But certainly that's the genesis.
Where did you go to school, and where did you get your training?
Well, my original training, I would say my original source would be Stella Adler herself, which is interesting considering I wind up back at the Stella Adler Theater.
Directing
and producing a festival that we'll be talking about. I worked with Stella Adler for 3 years. When she'd come out to avoid the extremes of heat and cold from New York, she'd set up shop in Los Angeles, and it was a great, wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
Are you local? Did you go to school here?
I did go to school here for film and television production, actually. But then after a point, a few years back, I decided I wanted to reinvigorate myself a bit, and I wanted to do nothing but just eat, breathe, sleep theater. So I went back to the American Repertory Theater. I had an opportunity to work and train with the wonderful, wonderful regional theater company that Robert Brustein brought from Yale and brought to Harvard.
Oh, so did you live there? You lived in Cambridge?
I lived there for 2 Yes, I did. We lived in Watertown, actually, just down the way.
I know Watertown very well. I go to Watertown all the time. And I've met Robert Brustein, and I think he's wonderful.
Oh, he's tremendous.
Such a great talker, and he's got so many experiences. So you started going on the stage there at his rep?
Yes, the American Repertory Theater has a philosophy on its training arm. They have a professional training program, and I think to Brustein's credit, he says, I want those actors either rehearsing or performing from the moment they enter to the moment they leave. So I had a tremendous opportunity, both working on the main stage and also in other productions, just doing about 17 different shows during that 2-year stint that I was there before going to New York. The
reason I think it's so great also is because they come from New York to see what he's doing.
Yes, yes.
I mean, you get a lot of
it's a
audience.
Definite regional presence. They've won the Tony for regional theater, and deservedly so, and they have a wonderful, exciting season even now. They have, the thing about the American Repertory Theater that Robert Brustein has fostered is to make the theater and the visiting artists shape the training. So, for instance, when I was there, David Mamet was working on The Old Neighborhood that was originally so David Mamet would come and work with the actors, and he had some wonderful, wonderful directors from all over the world, Francois Rocher, people like that.
Did your directing start there? Your directing idea of taking hold and being a director?
I had some directing experience prior to that, but in terms of my directing currently, where that came out of was really when I was working on Witchblade in Toronto. I had the opportunity to attend the Toronto Theatre Festival. Canada has a wonderful, vibrant theatre scene that every province has a major theatre festival that folks travel from place to place to place. And seeing these shows, I wanted to jump up and be a part of it.
So that's where it started in Canada.
So by default, as a result of the show that I saw, one of the shows that I saw that I loved, Tale of the Scorpion, the one that I'm currently directing, producing, and performing in,
and that's at the Stella Adler,
yes.
so it was like back home for you.
Back home, absolutely. And so it was by default in a way that I had to direct this, and I'm very, very comfortable with it. My background is certainly comedy, and I've done a lot of half-hour comedies and stage comedies.
But
so.
let's start with the Story Syndicate.
Yes.
Because that's really how this Canadian festival that was inaugurated and
Yes.
debuted in Hollywood started.
Yes.
From Toronto, from Canada.
The Story Syndicate is a production company that I formed to help serve my various interests. We had just finished a very, very well-received run, both critically and commercially, of a show that I produced called Dick and Don's Fabulous 60s Rock and Soul Spectacular.
Right, was it a musical?
It was a musical event. That's right. It was a sort of a musical review of the music of the 60s. And for my the current production, I wanted to bring and share with Los Angeles audiences some of these wonderful, wonderful entertainers and shows and performers that I had found in Canada when I was there. Tale of the Scorpion has a very, very large cast. There are 10 performers. So as a result, I certainly made the offer to the Canadian performers, but wasn't able to get them all to come out,
I see.
as opposed to the other shows that I'm bringing. So Scorpion, I worked very closely with Adrian Truss, the author, who I believe you met at
I
Open.
did. I talked to him, and it's so interesting what he's doing because he's in another group that you're bringing out.
Illustrated Men.
Illustrated.
They're something of a cult hit in Toronto. The three of them, Adrian Truss, David Huban, Bruce Hunter, have been together for over 20 years. And so for the close of the festival, I'm very, very fortunate to bring them. It's a great, great treat for Los Angeles audiences. And in one night, you'll be able to see the show that Adrian wrote. He's an alum of Second City, SCTV. Wonderful actor and director in his own right.
And then he did some of the voiceover.
Yes, he did. He did some of the voiceover. The show is it's a fond look back to the pulp era. A pulp novelist has a deadline of 3 different stories that he has to write. And so Adrian did the voiceover narration for the 3 different characters, the colorful heroes and villains that will then be coming into the piece.
How do you direct a spoof? This is a really genre,
Sure.
tongue-in-cheek kind of play. It's not just blatant comedy hitting you in the face, but it's very subtle laughter all during the whole thing. How do you direct that, say, as opposed to a drama?
Well, I think there are similar elements in the sense that, at least for this show, I was very convinced that, you don't want the actors or the performers to stand outside of the characters and point and say, look at how funny they are. I mean, it still has to be that same approach to the roles. I know that all of the actors took their performances very seriously and they did all the same preparation that they would a drama. I think that maybe the difference is that we needed to sharpen up action in certain areas, and we needed to certainly realize that, of course, because of the material we're dealing with, that it's okay for the audience to share in a laugh, and we didn't want to be too ponderous, of course. And I think actually, from a practical point of view, that was the reason that I chose these 4 shows.
I was going to ask you how you chose them because they came from the Fringe, right? The
Yes.
Fringe Festival in Canada.
Right. Well, for instance, Alex Dallas, Nymphomania, this is a show that has played to sold-out audiences throughout Canada.
They say the minute
And
the minute her show is announced, it's sold out all over?
Sold out. She's just a wonderful entertainer. And
So you picked her right away because you thought,
well, I'll tell you, the reason I picked her was because I couldn't get into her show. So this was my way of seeing her show, was to have her come out and do it here in Los Angeles. So I was looking forward to seeing Alex's show, and this was what happened.
but back to Tale of the
Yes.
Scorpion, because there's some effects that go on. I think the
Correct.
knife effect is funny.
Oh.
Knife in the back.
Oh, right. Well, there are a lot of, the sound, one of the reviewers had rightfully said the sound itself is an additional character, really. And so when you hear the knife and, the character, and you see the knife in the back and that sort of thing.
And the rain. I had to look up to see if it was raining. I think the audio is so fabulous. I don't know why it's so good.
Oh, thank you. Credit goes to Terry Southern, who, and as well as the original score. There was some original music from the Canadian production, but we wanted to and this was something that they didn't have a chance to do in Toronto because of the fact that when they come to a theater, they just load in 2 hours, 3 hours beforehand.
Oh, I see.
So this gave us a chance to give it a more full run. Adrian also wrote additional dialogue. There's a character that didn't appear in the last half of the play who does in ours.
I see.
And so this was part of the development of the show itself.
One thing I wanted to ask you is if you were a dancer, if you are a dancer.
That's interesting. I had taken tap dancing as a boy.
The only reason is because the way you've directed everyone, it's very fluid. They're kind of like doing choreography on the stage.
Well,
and
that's absolutely true. Absolutely right. And we had talked to the actors specifically about this because a lot of it is to the music, to various sound cues, and it requires the consistency and discipline of dance in order to pull it off.
That's really what I saw. The other thing is I wondered how you were, as a part of the play, directing them as well.
Well, Joan, I'll tell you, it's. I'm still wondering that myself. You know, I think back to opening night, and I think as the curtain was going up, I was still building a prop.
Oh,
Hadn't
so
had
you
my
did
costume
everything.
on. I mean, it was. I have a wonderful actor by the name of Joe Komarinsky who's in the company, and he not only is he able to play all the roles, women included, but he would perform my role when I needed to get a look at what was going on stage in terms of getting a visual picture.
Oh.
And then once in a while I'd jump in just so I could get a little bit of rehearsal.
Very interesting, because you wonder how an actor can then direct from the stage, but you look at it from the audience point of view.
Well, I certainly hope it works. You know, that can be a very self-indulgent exercise if it's done poorly, and I really just wanted to service the play and service the playwright and also ultimately the audience. I want the audience to have a great time, and that's really my reason for picking four comedies that are an hour long. And also I want audiences, and it's funny, there are a number of people in Los Angeles who I've talked about the play to and they've never seen a play before. And
I know,
so,
isn't that strange?
So as a result, I thought that I'd at least get 4 plays that would be a great first theater-going experience, as well as an experience that seasoned theater-goers would enjoy.
That they're not afraid, they're not intimidated to come in.
Absolutely.
And then when you see this unfold on stage, you're not afraid to laugh, because the actors are laughing too.
Oh, most definitely. And it certainly works best when we can all share in it together. You know?
So, Anthony Cistaro,
Yes.
thank you very much for being with us.
Well, thank you, Joan, and I'm glad that you were, you know, as I said, this is going to be an annual event, and you were here first, and I appreciate your support.
Oh, well, I love anything Canadian, because I think, just like you do, Toronto is such a cultural,
Absolutely.
trust up there. It's just filled.
Absolutely. Art, music, plenty of theater.
So I'm glad people like you are bringing it to us in LA.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this part of the Joan Quinn Profiles. We'll be right back with Hildy Brooks. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back on the Joan Quinn Profiles. Actress-playwright Hildy Brooks was born and raised on the East Coast. She's a member of the Actors Studio. She's been on stage in London and Los Angeles, as well as on and off Broadway. She's appeared in film and worked a lot in TV. Hildy studied with Lee Strasberg during his most creative years. What was the most important thing you learned from him?
Well, with lemon in hand, we do sense memory. So you hold your lemon, and then you create your lemon. Well, we were young students, and somebody got a film, and they said they had to have this attitude of, like very bitter or whatever. I said, well, why don't you work on a lemon? So I said, what you do is you suck the lemon, and then you sensorily create it. Well, he didn't trust that, so he took the lemon to the set and for 8 hours sucked lemon.
Oh, you ruined him.
Well, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to suck it once and then create it. But
Keep remembering what happened.
He didn't trust his sensory powers, so he just kept doing lemons.
And what did his coach say?
Well, it affected his performance. And he gave a lot of acid.
When you were in New Jersey going to school, did you want to act?
I always wanted to act.
Oh,
yes,
you did.
yeah. I always wanted to act, and I went to a very unusual school. I went to one of the first public African American schools that had to take Caucasian children in.
Oh.
So it was very unusual.
That was
And
in New Jersey?
In New Jersey,
Oh, that's
and it was sort of
interesting.
called the Princeton Plan. And when we had a casting session, it was who was the best actor, whether it was a family, whether it was Chekhov or Dickens' Carol. So it was a very extraordinary experience about being a minority and really knowing what that felt like and knowing that the love of the acting was more important than anything else.
That's very interesting. Then that probably was an easy step for you to get into Strasberg's classes.
Yes.
And then did you study with other people too?
No, for some reason I was very fortunate. I didn't go to his classes. I just was very fortunate and got into the actor's studio.
Oh, I see.
Which was a very unusual, still is in the whole world of theater, the most unusual place because you can be a big star or just a kid out of school like I was, and 5-minute audition, you get in or you don't. And some very, very big stars took like 8 auditions, and then Geraldine Page, I don't know if you remember her.
Of course.
But she took 8 auditions because she was so professional that what he was looking for, which was a certain spontaneity or whatever. So it was a very extraordinary place.
But you had this experience then from being in school, so you
With
were
him.
able to, yeah.
Yes. My early years at that school had a tremendous impact on me.
It's interesting, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, for a public school and
To
for
have that, because conventionally people who aren't part of different races, they have an image, but all my images were my professors, my teachers, the doctor, everybody was African American, and we had just like about 50 Caucasian children.
That's so
So it was
great.
an extraordinary experience.
That really
Yeah.
builds your self-esteem, doesn't it?
Well, it gives you a very deep understanding.
Yes, but you also know how to be with people the
Right.
rest of your life, which takes me into this story about going to Prague with your mother
Yes.
to act.
Yes.
Because here you are,
I'm glued.
you're here you are going to a country where very
Yes.
few people spoke English
Right.
in the,
And I
what
was
was it, in
definitely-
the 60s?
Yes,
Late
in the,
60s?
just before during what they called the Prague Spring, when the communists thawed out a little bit and they had Americans coming in. This was just before the Russian invasion.
So you went to
I went with
act
my
in-
mother.
Uh-huh.
My mother was my chaperone and also my translator because she had been born in Poland and she understood the language. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, if I needed something, she could
I
help
see,
me
I
and
see,
deal with me.
I see.
And I played the part of an American student who goes there to study art.
Oh, that actually was the part you were
Yes,
going to play?
yes.
But
And-
you have a play.
That's based on that. That's
I
based on that.
see,
And what
I
it was
see.
that we needed a studio to shoot the scene. And I saw this amazing sculpture. And I convinced the director it had to be in the play. Yeah, that was
Was this the
that's
piece?
right. And it was in the play, and under communism, they didn't even have to get the director's permission. So we just showed up there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he couldn't speak English, and I couldn't speak Czech, so I communicated with him for about 5 minutes.
And we have a tape of that.
What you have a tape of is when I went back in 1991,
Oh.
and now he is a very famous a renowned sculptor, and he is a personal friend of the president, Václav Havel, and he was also part of the Velvet Revolution.
Should we show that tape and then
Please,
you
yeah,
can talk
I
a
can
little
tell you,
bit
yeah.
more about the story? Okay, we'll roll that tape.
No, je to na vašem uvážení, když se rozhodnete, že teda bude
No už jsem to řekl, že to platí ten předchozí závazek. Tady jsou věci, že se tady něco
Can I buy this? Can it play code for this for my mom and dad?
No je.
Who? Can I code? We're gonna buy it.
Já může koupit pro manžela.
Ale kde se to dá koupit?
Where can I buy it?
To je domácí. On je dostane dárky.
Can I go to the person and buy it from them?
Jestliže je možný k tomu té osobě, která to dělá jako domácnost na věc lidí, a koupit to.
No je, ona vědět, že se vozí, takže dostane u mě samozřejmě.
It's from other part of this country. It's from Moravia. So we offers.
Point.
So there you were,
Yeah.
talking to him, but he couldn't understand a word you said.
And what I'm asking him is to get a bottle of special homemade brandy for my husband. And the clip that I wanted you to see was he takes the brandy and he says to the camera, he says, "For you, Jim, you lucky man, you got good, happy wife."
Oh,
And-
but you've known him for
over 25 years. We still correspond. We still send.
and you wrote letters back and
Yes,
forth.
that's all it was letters. See, that was the thing that I met for 10 minutes in 1968, just 10 minutes.
I see.
And I wrote him a little note, and then we started this relationship.
I see.
Because he, you know.
No emails then.
No, nothing, just letters that were censored by
And
the communist government.
And he wrote in
And he
Czech?
yes, and I found a translator.
I see.
And I found the translator who happened to have been one of the most important theatrical people there, a guy called George Vaskovec. And he was, we used some of his songs in the play.
When you wrote this reunion in Prague, which is so bizarre because it's on stage Lee
Right,
at the
it's
Strasbourg
Strasbourg
Theater,
Institute,
at
right.
the Strasbourg Institute, which is it must be like deja vu for you.
Anna Strasberg gave us for a piece of furniture Lee Strasberg's personal little table where he used to keep his records.
Oh, so it just brought
I mean, that's
it
how
all-
much.
It
you
just
know,
brought it all back. So did the president, did Havel at that time know what you were doing?
Well, he knew that when in 1991,
In 1991, yeah.
his wife Dagmar Havlova came and watched our rehearsal about a month ago.
Yes, she was in Los Angeles.
Yes, for a special event, and she had asked to please come to see our performance.
And did it take her back?
Oh yeah, it was just an amazing experience for her because she obviously understood whatever Czech is there in the play.
So our Obram Zubek,
Zobek,
who's the sculptor,
yes,
is played by whom?
Is played by Jim Antonio, who happens to be my husband. So my husband is playing my fantasy lover. And it's a very a metaphysical menage à trois.
And you're being directed by Jack Betts,
Yes.
who's an actor.
Yes, Jack Betts directed us a couple of years ago in Jewish Wife and The Informer. That was very, very
You
successful.
played opposite each other. How do you stay on the stage and play opposite each other? And how does the director interact with husband and wife?
Well, I look at my husband like he's not my husband. Like
I think
in
you
this
have to.
play, he has to dance with me. And I've always said, please let's go dancing. And here I have him trapped for the period of time, and he dances with me.
So it's because Jack Betts is telling him to dance with you.
No, because I wrote it in the play. I also like to play ping pong, and I threaten my husband with a ping pong scene because he won't play with me.
Well, you had some madness there of your own. Do you have the sculpture that Obran did?
No, it's very large. It's about 6 and 7 feet tall. It's very, very large. There is somebody he just had a commission of 27 of those statues at an estate in England. So it's in Europe. It is very.
So he's a working actor. A working sculptor now.
He is the official sculptor of the Czech Republic.
But he was dismissed.
He
from
was a
Czechoslovakia.
dissident. He was a dissident, and his work was not allowed to be shown in Prague.
Did he live there?
Yes.
Well, during that time.
Yes.
But he couldn't
He
show
couldn't
anything.
show it. He couldn't show it because he had signed what they called Charter 77 when Václav Havel went to jail in 1979. He signed that 1977 document asking for civil rights, and he became a persona non grata there.
So from the stage, you have directed film.
Yes, I have. Yeah, in
I
fact,
thought that was interesting.
my first film started at the Actors Studio. Lee Strasberg saw something I had written, and it was about my mother. It was about called Bloomers. It was about my mother, and it won a lot of awards on PBS. And he said, "That's a nice little play, but it shouldn't be a play. It should be a movie." So the American Film Institute gave me a grant, and I made a film out of it.
And then did you direct someone else? Did you direct an actor?
Oh, yes.
Martin Landau?
Oh, Martin Landau in a film called Trial by Terror, which was, you know, when somebody breaks into your house and you shoot them, even though they have, they can sue you for wrongful death.
So you.
So that's what.
But so you've directed on stage and film.
Yeah.
And do you find a difference?
Well, film, you can grab the actor's ankle and say, smile or cry. You can't do that on stage. On stage, you're on your own, you know.
That's right.
And the woman who the film I made called Bloomers is based on my mother. My mother played a small part in it.
Oh.
And the woman who played my mother sometimes got a little, you know, overacting, and I would just crawl underneath and just pinch her toe, and she calmed down. She was wonderful. Her name was Pearl Shears. Terrific actress. Just wonderful.
Are you involved at all with the Czech community in Los Angeles?
Yes, the Czech consulate of Los Angeles has endorsed us, and they want us to go to Prague and do it there.
That's interesting. I was wondering, because it should be. I mean, reunion in Prague.
Yes,
where else should it be?
It's a cultural exchange between us, and the ambassador, the American ambassador from Prague, his daughter is coming to see the show and is going to, you know, probably...
He's from Texas?
Stapleton, Ambassador Stapleton. And, you know, the idea of doing it at the American Embassy would be nice.
Also, the theater life in Prague.
Oh, yes, it's very active.
Lots of theater.
And a lot of film. A lot of American companies go there because of the beautiful castles. They do a lot of porno there.
Is that right?
Yes, they put these little girlies in fancy costumes and they're running around the castle.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's funny, but there's a lot of porno being shot there.
Huh. Well, they must not have any kind of protection for those women. I mean, or their rights, women's rights.
Well, one of the things that comes with democracy and capitalism is a lot of free openness.
Openness.
Sometimes the openness is a little too open, but
we'll stop there.
We'll stop there.
Keep your lemon.
Right.
Thanks, Hildy Brooks.
Thank you, darling. Very nice.
Thanks very much for being with us.
Hope you can see the show.
We will. And thank you, Yoshiko Ikazaki, for this handmade paper that's on the set today. These paintings are absolutely beautiful. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 917.